The Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is a large area of ocean between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. Over the last few centuries, it is thought that dozens of ships and planes have disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the area, earning it the nickname the Devil's Triangle. People have even gone so far as to speculate that it's an area of extraterrestrial activity, or that there is some bizarre natural scientific cause for the region to be so hazardous, but most likely it's simply an area in which people have experienced a lot of bad luck. The idea of it being a vortex of doom is no more real than Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, as you'll soon see. The Bermuda Triangle's bad reputation started with Christopher Columbus. According to his log, on the 8th of October 1492, Columbus looked down at his compass and noticed that it was giving him weird readings. He didn't alert his crew at first, because having a compass that didn't point to magnetic north may have sent the already on-edge crew into a panic. This was probably a good decision, considering 3 days later, when Columbus simply spotted a strange light, the crew threatened to return to Spain. This and other reported compass issues in the region gave rise to the myth that compasses will all be off in the triangle, which isn't correct, or at least is an exaggeration of what is actually happening. Despite this, in 1970, the US Coast Guard, attempting to explain the reasons for disappearances in the triangle, stated, "First, the Devil's Triangle is one of the two places on Earth that a magnetic compass does not point towards true north. Normally it points towards magnetic north. The difference between the two is known as a compass variation. The amount of variation changes by as much as 20 degrees as one circumnavigates the Earth. If this compass variation, or error, is not compensated for, a navigator could find himself far off course and in deep trouble." Of course, despite this now being repeated as an explanation for disappearances in the triangle on numerous documentaries and articles since then, it turns out that magnetic variation is something ship captains and other explorers have known about and had to deal with pretty much as long as there have been ships and compasses. Dealing with magnetic declination is really just navigation by compass 101 and nothing to be concerned about, nor anything that would seriously throw off any experienced navigator. In 2005, the Coast Guard revisited the issue after a TV producer in London inquired about it for a program he was working on. In this case, they correctly changed their tune about the magnetic field bit, stating, "Many explanations have cited unusual magnetic properties within the boundaries of the triangle. Although the world's magnetic fields are in constant flux, the Bermuda Triangle has remained relatively undisturbed. It is true that some exceptional magnetic values have been reported within the triangle, but none to make the triangle more unusual than any other place on Earth." The modern-day Bermuda Triangle legend didn't get started until 1950, when an article written by Edward Van Winkle Jones was published by the Associated Press. Jones reported several instances of disappearing ships and planes in the Bermuda Triangle, including 5 US Navy torpedo bombers that vanished on December 5, 1945, and the commercial airliners Star Tiger and Star Ariel, which disappeared on January 30, 1948 and January 17, 1949, respectively. All told, about 135 individuals were unaccounted for, and they all went missing around the Bermuda Triangle. As Jones said, "They were swallowed without a trace." It was a 1955 book, The Case for the UFO, written by M.K. Jessup, that started pointing fingers at alien life forms. After all, no bodies or wreckage had been discovered. By 1964, Vincent H. Gaddis, who coined the term Bermuda Triangle, wrote an article saying over 1,000 lives had been claimed by the area. He also agreed that it was a pattern of strange events. The Bermuda Triangle obsession hit its peak in the early 1970s, with the publication of several paperback books about the topic, including the bestseller by Charles Bertlett's The Bermuda Triangle. However, critic Larry Kuesch, who published The Bermuda Triangle Mystery Solved in 1975, argued that other authors had exaggerated their numbers and hadn't done any proper research. They presented some disappearance cases as mysteries, when they weren't really mysteries at all, and some reported cases hadn't even happened within the Bermuda Triangle. After extensively researching the issue, Kuesch concluded that the number of disappearances that occurred within the Bermuda Triangle wasn't actually greater than any other similarly trafficked area of the ocean, and that other writers presented misinformation, such as not reporting storms that occurred on the same day as disappearances, and sometimes even making it seem as though the conditions had been calm for the purposes of creating a sensational story. In short, previous Bermuda Triangle authors didn't do their research and either knowingly or unintentionally made it up. The book did such a thorough job of debunking the myth that it effectively ended most of the Bermuda Triangle hype. When authors like Berlitz and others were unable to refute Couche's findings, even the most steadfast of believers had difficulty remaining confident in the sensationalized Bermuda Triangle narrative. Nevertheless, many magazine articles, TV shows, and movies have continued to feature the Bermuda Triangle. Because the number of disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle is no greater than any other similarly trafficked area of the world's oceans, they don't really need an explanation. But if you're still convinced the Triangle is a ship graveyard relative to other regions that get around the same number of travelers, here are some natural explanations from the Coast Guard to combat some of the alien and other fantastical theories. The majority of disappearances can be attributed to the area's unique factors. The Gulf Stream, a warm ocean current flowing from the Gulf of Mexico around the Florida Straits northeastward toward Europe, is extremely swift and turbulent. It can quickly erase any evidence of a disaster. The unpredictable Caribbean Atlantic storms that give birth to waves of great size, as well as waterspouts, often spell disaster for pilots and mariners. Not to mention that the area is in Hurricane Alley. The topography of the ocean floor varies from extensive shoals to some of the deepest marine trenches in the world. With the interaction of strong currents over reefs, the topography is in a constant state of flux and breeds development of new navigational hazards. Not to be underestimated is the human factor. A large number of pleasure boats travel the water between Florida's Gold Coast, the most densely populated area in the world, and the Bahamas. All too often, crossings are attempted with too small a boat, insufficient knowledge of the area's hazards, and a lack of good seamanship. Bonus facts. Whatever the rumors might have you believe, insurance companies don't actually charge higher premiums for shipping in the Bermuda Triangle. Bonus fact 2. Another mysterious triangle is the Michigan Triangle, an area stretching between Michigan and Wisconsin over the center of Lake Michigan, where disappearances have occurred. One disappearance was Captain George R. Donner, who supposedly simply vanished from his cabin on the O.S. McFarland as it carted coal to Wisconsin. On April 28, 1937, his second mate went to tell him they were approaching port, but no one could find him anywhere aboard the ship. In another instance, a plane was flying above the triangle and apparently just disappeared. Small amounts of debris were found floating in the water, but the rest of the wreckage and bodies of passengers weren't found. If you guessed that little credence is given to this triangle being an area of unusual activity for similar reasons as the Bermuda Triangle misrepresentations, you'd be correct. So I really hope you liked that video, and if you did like it, click like below and leave us a comment to let us know what you think. And also check out a couple of our other videos, which are linked to on the screen now, and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos every day. Thanks for watching.